G'day legends, I hope that you're doing really well and having a good end to your working week. Now, today we're going to talk about some arrests, some casualty figures that Ukraine have reported, and also some news, and we'll have a look over the maps. But firstly, a word from today's sponsor. Legends, I, like many others, find it very hard to relax and give my mind a rest for the day. Well, today's video sponsor, Galaxy Lamps, has been a new tool in my arsenal to make my space feel a bit more relaxing, especially after a long, stressful day of work. The Galaxy projector will light up any room with countless rotating stars and colourful nebulae. They also have an app which is very easy to connect and use that'll let you fully customise the colours, adjust the rotation speed, the brightness, and set automatic on and off timers. And you can also control it with Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, making it fully customisable to what you want and what fits your space and your mood. Now, one of my good friends actually uses one of these in his office, and I never actually knew what it was, but it gives an array of colour to a typically dull home office space. I'm yet to fully explore all the features and potential of this, but I know the next time I have a couple of beers around at my place, I'll definitely have it on to set the mood. I can also see this being a fantastic gift. So Legends, Galaxy Lamps is actually offering you a 15% discount. So if you go to galaxylamps.co/WillyOAM and use the discount code WillyOAM, spelt how you'll see here on the screen, or as my YouTube name, you'll get a 15% discount on your order. Visit Galaxy Lamps in my bio or the top comment on this video. And thanks again, Galaxy Lamps, for sponsoring this video. So looking at the maps, of course, in the center we have Ukraine and the capital of Kiev. In the red areas occupied since 22, and the purple since 14. The green areas liberated since the invasion in 22, this being Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and of what we need to look at is this is the Black Sea and the Bosphorus through here down near Turkey. Now, we have Romania, Poland, Belarus, and Russia around here. Now, what we're going to go down to is into Bakhmut and talk about some changes here and look at a few things as well. So let's have a look. Today is the 18th, but this was updated last night. So it's a little bit out of date, but it's the most recent we've got from at least the deep state. So go back to yesterday. What did we see? So on these flanks, as we know, Ukraine has been hitting the flanks, both north and south of Bakhmut, very hard. We do see that they have made more ground in on this southern flank. As we know, Russia is deploying more forces into there from the VDV. Now, what we have seen through the centre is then a major push of land here as well. So we see that Russia has taken up a major bit of ground in here, but this falls in line with what they have been claiming for a while through the ISW map as well. So this is, of course, the road with the one through it. We talk about this all the time, and have pushed right up to the almost where this road acts almost as a baseline. And this is fairly similar to what we're seeing in the yellow claimed control on the ISW, and similar-ish to the red assessed control on the ISW. We have seen, though, that Ukraine on this very southern edge has got more ground around here. This is where the MiG-17 statue is. And we have seen some major pushes in and around the centre of Bakhmut, and that being a very fluid front line, changing day to day. Now, a contact of mine does tell me that Russia has been actually pushed back where this reservoir is here. They have pushed back across this, but then have come back across this here. So this map doesn't reflect that, but that is what I'm being told. We also have some footage and some other maps to look at. Now, what we do have is some maps from May 22 of Bakhmut. Sorry, not maps, satellite images. So that's from May 22. And this one is from this year, also May 23. So we can see Bakhmut on the left in 22 and now the left on the right in 23. Just the sheer destruction of the entirety of Bakhmut. And most of the fighting is now taking place down in these blocks here. This is where this road loops around with the one through it and this reservoir up here we speak about. So Russia is down well in these blocks here, and the Ukraine remain in these blocks here. Now, we do see there has been a lot of shelling, and this came out captioned, you can see the lack of ammunition Wagner PMC claimed to have, randomly shelling and destroying the city from a Ukrainian source. And this is this video here. Shelling from a drone of this shelling of the final blocks of Bakhmut being held by the Ukrainian forces as the fortress in this vicinity. And these are the high-rise blocks that we saw in those photos we just saw before. And you can just see the sheer amount of shelling from 0800 to 1500, so 3 in the afternoon. And more of these shells coming in, striking buildings at all different heights, both on the ground and in high rises too. And then we skip forward, you can just see that the amount of dust and fire in this region as we go around more on the drone, and just the sheer relentless shelling. We step in here, 1900, so 7 o'clock in the afternoon, more shelling right on these outskirts. You can see that it's late in the afternoon due to the golden light and the sun being low, golden area, any photographer will talk of, and just the sheer amount of constant, relentless shelling of these buildings here. And this has been geolocated to this area here. Now, there are 3 geolocations given for the 3 separate drone shots, but they're all down within this region in these last remaining blocks of Bakhmut that are still holding here. So what has changed between yesterday's Bakhmut ISW and today's? So this was yesterday's and today's. We need to just zoom out a little bit on this one to line it up. And to me, there is no significant change. We see that Russia has been pushed back on the north and south flank significantly, but in the centre, we don't see much of a change, at least between those 2 maps. Now, as I always say, I think the most reliable way to look at this is the deep state and line that up with some maps as well. So here we have the Wagner sources map for the 17th. This is the most recent one. That shows more ground that has been taken by the Ukrainian forces in on the flank here, where we know that the Russian VDV have been holding, as well as other conventional units from the Russian armed forces. But as Prigozhin has said, the leader of Wagner Group that operating in the very centre, has been saying that these forces are not equipped or deployed in the numbers needed to hold back the offensives in these areas, as Ukraine is shaping this for a future larger offensive. Now, this doesn't show perfectly on where we're looking at, but this road that turns up to the left, and this is the one through Kromove here. So this is this road, and this one where they meet in this point here is this point here. So it is showing very similar to what the ISW says is the assessed control. But this is saying from the deep state that it is basically cut down here and runs down along this road. But interestingly, I actually think this is showing less of this controlled ground on the Wagner sources map to the southern region, where this is coming then than the ISW show, and even on the deep state as well, at least to my eye. So let's also have a look at the Rybar Russian sources too. Now, the Rybar does show as well this southern flank push to the east that is also shown on the Wagner sources map. So this one here, we can see almost the identical shape here of more clearing from the Ukrainian forces to the east on the flank of Bakhmut. There's that continuous push, and this arrow here, which is near the MiG-17 memorial, which we have spoken of, which is indicated on this map by the blue area that we have seen pop up in the last couple of days, that is pushing through here. Now, compared to the deep state, what we have seen is in the very centre, Wagner have continued this push and are showing that there is fighting all down along this road up into this region here, and that they are pushing more through the front line, but no huge gains in the front line from the Rybar sources yesterday to today, although the Deep State has updated, showing some large gains here being assessed in and around there. I did forget to show you, I have some more photographs from May 22 and May 23. So here we have May 23 on the right of Bakhmut and May 23 on the left. You can just see the sheer destruction of Bakhmut in this region, that every single tree has been flattened, every single building has been absolutely scarred by shelling as well. And to be honest, from satellite imagery, although it does look impressive, doesn't show the sheer damage to a lot of buildings just being then reduced to rubble. Again, May 22 on the left and May 23 on the right, another area on the outskirts of Bakhmut here in some of these last remaining blocks as well. And you can just see again the sheer amount of artillery speckled holes here, and how it used to look and how it is now looking today, as well as the buildings. I also got sent this update from a confirmed but an anonymous, currently unnamed source, but a few of you may have listened to some things we have spoken about before. They gave me this intel update today. The possibility of the offensive started in the east is a distraction op may be unlikely, as real forces have been spent. I doubt the offensives will be able to achieve any kind of operational encirclement. At most, they may be able to harm the Russian forces' supply lines. This is talking about the east being in Bakhmut. However, the majority of combat power is being concentrated in the south for a southern offensive. The issue Ukraine has is that while having a superior force ratios, they have dispersed their forces on a wide front in hopes of both thinning out the Russian reserves and obscuring where the different axis of attack will come from. The clear downside is that Ukrainian forces have been dispersed across the entire front. This will result in each axis being unable to take and hold much ground. Additionally, as each axis is generally not supporting, another failure on one axis cannot be quickly fixed, as the other reserves required to create the necessary operational spear point, which could reach any strategically important key terrain. Furthermore, as each axis has been placed too far away from the other axis, it means that if an attack gets bogged down, it will require more forces to break through or bypass. These forces will not be available, as less force also means a greater emphasis on the economy of force, as a wider frontage or a deeper penetrative spear point requires more forces. Additionally, Russian defensive works, while varied in capability, their sheer numbers creates a large number of targets to destroy, which combined with that the fact of many mutually support creates a large number of targets to destroy, which combined with the fact that many mutually support each other will both tie down any Ukrainian offensive and make any kind of maneuver warfare difficult. Tactical competence could help mitigate these issues, but as we've seen in the Zaporizhzhia battle, Western-style combined arms offensives have failed, with drunk kudu trained soldiers getting lost or blown up by ATGMs, anti-tank guided munitions, and with very limited advances being made near Bakhmut, despite that sector having some of Ukraine's better units. Furthermore, even if Ukrainians are able to advance, Russian artillery, while degraded, is still operational and will most likely stop any advance. Ukrainian air power is also insufficient to maintain close air support, Kaz, with CIP Keating. Now, CIP Keating being Combat Outpost Keating, this is sort of a yardstick given for that close air support, requiring a total of 144 modern airframes flying constant sorties for 48 hours to keep TIC being troops in contact being in a firefight from being overrun. Ukraine doesn't even have anything close to this level of air power, and as such, it is my view that Western support for this without reform would constitute external criminal negligence that unnecessarily endangers lives. That said, the Russian force is exhausted and their morale is low, which I hope will help Ukraine win. However, hope is not a strategy. Again, this is from someone working deep within that space. Has to be anonymous, unnamed, whatever, but I think that is very interesting. Today, Ukrainian sources have marked that Russian casualties have surpassed 200,000 liquidated in this conflict, and this is being celebrated by many pro-Ukrainian channels. Here we have this of today, liquidated personnel up by 610, 200,590. We know the number of KIA in this conflict is very high for both sides, and many have speculated that 200,000 is an overestimation, that the Pentagon leaks from February this year show a KIA on a very different level. So this is from the Pentagon leaks. Here we have Russia 35,500 to 43,500 KIA actually killed in action. This is greatly from the 200,000 in only 5 or 6 months. Now, the 200,000 would make more sense if it included wounded, but liquidated means KIA. There are no figures released for the Ukrainian personnel, as this information, or even speculating on these figures, will land you in a lot of trouble, as I know firsthand. But I've heard figures in the tens to hundreds of thousands. People will falsely claim that the defending force will take a third of the casualties of the offensive force. This is incorrect. Where this figure of a third comes from is military doctrine says in planning and offensive operations, conventional militaries aim for a 3-to-1 ratio, and a well dug in proper defensive position should be able to defend at a factor of a third. That said, this figure is not set in stone at all and is a very, very loose guideline. And this definitely doesn't indicate casualties taken, and it's more just sort of an older rough rule. And this doesn't take into account many, many variables, especially long-range weaponry. Estimating casualties of this is insanely unreliable. That said, the offensive force will often take far greater casualties, but as Ukraine goes on the offensive, they will likely take more casualties as well. As we've seen Russian forces, and they've been on the offensive the majority of this conflict, take huge casualty figures. But saying this, we know due to the dreams of those living in palaces, hundreds of thousands have lost their lives to this conflict. And depending on how this is ended, hundreds of thousands more will lose their lives, this affecting tens of millions. Now, I was speculated before, with neither side willing to budge at all on this, it's become a war of attrition, and it would be entirely possible to have well over 1 million dead by the time this conflict is either won through conquer of lands, a peace deal signed, or grinds to a stagnant frontline area, similar to what we saw between 14 and 22, with some movements but no major offensive launched. So it could go either way, but either way we'll see hundreds of thousands more killed in this war, unless it were to miraculously end in the next coming months. The Security Services of Ukraine, or better known as the SBU, has detained 6 online bloggers saying they have illegally disseminated information about the work of air defense forces during the massive Russian attack on Kiev. The bloggers have issued public apologies online. So let's have a look at this from the official sites. From the SBU Security Services of Ukraine website, translated to English, we have the SBU exposed bloggers and blocked online cameras that illuminated the work of air defense during the Russian attack on Kiev May 16th. The Security Service of Ukraine has established the identities of 6 residents of the capital who illegally disseminated information about the work of air defense forces during the massive Russian attack on Kiev. On the night of May 16th, they took unauthorized photos and videos of the work of Ukrainian air defense and posted relevant materials on social networks. Among other things, the participants recorded the results of defeating Russian cruise and ballistic missiles. Thus, they could reveal the location and specifics of the work of the domestic air defense, this being the Patriot systems, talking about Patriot versus the Kinzhal system. Now, in a matter of minutes, these vehicles were picked up by numerous Telegram channels and Russian propaganda outlets, among them internet resources controlled by the special services of the aggressor country, being probably the FSB from Russia. In addition, cyber specialists of the SBU blocked the operation of online cameras that automatically recorded the operation of the Ukrainian air defense. According to the investigation, the discovered video cameras are on the balance sheet of several commercial structures in the capital. At the same time, access to the captured files was open to a wide range of users who posted the video of the night attack on Kiev publicly on YouTube. The information obtained in this way could be used by the occupiers to adjust repeated airstrikes on the capital of Ukraine. During the urgent investigative actions at the places of actual residence of the accused, mobile phones and computer equipment of which they used to distribute prohibited content were seized. According to the specified facts, the SBU investigators had registered criminal proceedings under Part 2 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, unauthorized dissemination of information about the sending of transferred weapons, armaments and military supplies to Ukraine, the movement, transfer or placement of the armed force of Ukraine or other military formations formed in accordance with the laws of Ukraine committed under martial law. Under the procedural leadership of the Kiev City Prosecutor's Office, comprehensive measures are underway to establish all the circumstances of the crime and bring the guilty to justice. Perpetrators face up to 8 years in prison. The Security Service once again emphasises the prohibition of shooting and publishing video and photo materials regarding the activities of the Defence Forces, as well as the consequences of enemy shelling. The publication of such photo and video materials on the internet is considered to be the correction of enemy fire and is crime punishable by law, being that Russia can have almost instantaneous updates of where their shells have hit or missiles have hit to aim over, aim lower, aim left, aim right. They can use that sort of information. Now, there was a video released on their official YouTube channel as well. Now, this has been automatically translated by YouTube, so there may be some slight discrepancies with the translation. This is very similar to what we just read as well. So here are the identities of the 6 people. In these photos have them blurred out, but we know there's many photos of these people not blurred out as well. So this gentleman here talks about disseminating this information and basically talks about exactly what I just said. Then we get to one of these apologies here from this lady. Now, this originally did not have her face blurred out here and was not translated. As you can see from her eye movement, she's reading off a teleprompter or a sheet on the left, and then we'll see the eyes shift then to the right. So he's reading off something here. Now, this girl, who here I can't confirm either, but is said to be the wife or girlfriend of prominent underworld figure. So here is what we see here.
16 травня 23-го року під час чергового акту тероризму з боку Російської Федерації розмістили відеозапис роботи ППО міста Києва на власній сторінці у соціальній мережі Instagram, яке потім розповсюджено у засобах масової інформації та в телеграм-каналах Російської Федерації. Робила це без злого умислу. На даний момент співробітниками Служби безпеки України зі мною проведено профілактичну бесіду та вичерпно роз'яснено негативні наслідки мого необачного вчинку. Свою провину визнаю повністю. Прошу вибачення у українського народу та зобов'язуюсь більше такого не повторювати.
Ніч з 15.05 під час обстрілу державного агресора міста Києва зняла на відео роботу системи нашої.
So, of course, like we spoke about, filming things like this is an OPSEC breach, and it does give almost live updates to this, and we'll talk about that more in a sec.
Та місце її дислокації.
And there are a number of these videos here as well. And I believe that these people do not have the wrong intent on doing it. But, you know, the intent is one thing, of course, not acting as Russian spies. But intent aside can definitely be used for malicious behavior.
О 3 годині ночі почула вибухи за вікном, підійшла до вікна та побачила роботу ПВО. Зняла відео роботи ПВО, робила ці дії без злого умислу та провину свою повністю визнаю.
Відзняв роботу ППО 16-го.
So these people coming out as well. Now, the lady we looked at, firstly, she also released another video on her private networks as
Хочу
well.
попросить прощения у Украины и украинского народа. Извините меня, пожалуйста, я сделала необдуманный поступок. Я очень сильно испугалась, выложила видео, была с детьми дома. Даже не знала, что происходит.
Again, it may not just seem obvious to a regular civilian, just I'm filming something, putting it online or sending it to a friend, but it can be significant when you're talking about military operations. OPSEC, like this being operational security, used to only be really relevant to soldiers, but now with the internet, smartphones, smart cameras, all this, the ability to use this footage instantly for intel is massive and has been something that has happened all throughout this war, and we've seen many examples of this going badly. People often say about Twitter pages breaching OPSEC with sharing videos and geolocating. Trust me, once it's out there on the internet, it's on the internet and the other side have seen it. And we've seen numerous times these breaches of OPSEC having dire consequences through this conflict. And being under martial law, these laws can be in place. A number of accredited journalists have also had their media accreditations revoked due to this as well, with posting information too quickly or being in areas they're not meant to be. As a journalist and a former soldier, I can see both sides of this. I am a huge believer in the freedom of press and freedom of speech. I believe in a perfect world, press should be allowed to go anywhere and see anything to inform the wider community. But as a soldier, I would hate to work with press due to their overall lack of tactical experience and potential OPSEC breaches. It's very difficult being on both sides. I can see the arguments for both. Especially in this modern world with being able to share something instantaneously, everyone be able to live stream off their phone. This is a huge issue. And I don't think the laws have really caught up with this. I'm not sure how it happens in Australia if something like this were to happen, what actually happens under martial law and OPSEC breaches from just regular civilians. Now, speaking of this battle, we have an MOD update from the UK speaking about this with the ballistic missiles. Now, over last week, the air battle over the Russia-Ukraine border has intensified. On 13 May 23 alone, 4 Russian aerospace VKS aircraft, 2 advanced combat jets and 2 helicopters. One of these helicopters was an electronic warfare helicopter, so a very important aircraft to the Russian aerospace forces, crashed, apparently shot down over Russia's Bryansk region. Now, many are saying that this was a Russian air defense system that had a fault with the friend or foe and shot down its own aircraft, being 4 of them, and 2 very advanced aircraft, being 1 very modern fighter jet and the EW helicopter. Now, on May 3rd, 23, Ukraine achieved the first ever shootdown of a Killjoy, this Kinzhal, or Dagger translated, air-launched ballistic missile. They say ballistic here. So Kinzhal is sort of in between being ballistic and being a true hypersonic, as it can reach hypersonic speeds, but is air-launched from a jet. Now, subsequently, Russia has prioritized attempting to neutralize Ukraine's improved air defense capabilities, but in the process has likely lost several more Killjoy. Now, I spoke about this yesterday, that I don't think that there is enough evidence yet to say that a Patriot system was destroyed and that any of these Killjoy Kinzhal missiles were actually intercepted by this, and we've spoken about this in a few videos. I'm happy to believe anything in the world that there is evidence for non-reasonable doubt. Now, the increased air threat over Russia's border region will be one of exceptional concern for the VKS because it uses the area to launch air power in support of this war. The apparent vulnerability of the Kinzhal is likely a surprise and an embarrassment for Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has touted the system as undefeatable, but that's how propaganda works. Propaganda doesn't need to be true to be effective, and him saying it works and is unable to be shot down is effective even if it is, and saying that we shot it down even if we may not have is still effective as well. Propaganda is effective even if it isn't true, and most of the time it isn't true. Also, somewhat unexpectedly, Russia has agreed to renew Ukraine's Black Sea deal for another 60 days, this being the grain export deal, with recent delegates from Russia and Ukraine coming to blows at the talks recently in Turkey. Now, the Turkish President Erdogan has said yesterday, "I want to give good news. With the efforts of our country, the support of our Russian friends, and the contribution of our Ukrainian friends, the Black Sea Grain Initiative has been extended by another 2 months." Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Komarov has said, "We welcome the continuation of the initiative, but emphasise that it must work effectively. We hope that our partners will do their best to get the grain deal to fully work for the world's food security, and that Russia will eventually stop using food as a weapon and blackmail." Now, Russia was initially unwilling to extend the pact unless a list of demands regarding its own agricultural exports was met. Although Russia's exports of food and fertilizer are not subject to Western sanctions due to its invasion of Ukraine, Moscow says restrictions on payments, logistics, and insurance have become a barrier to shipments. And we know the insurance is a big problem for these ships because, of course, they need to pay a lot more insurance, therefore raising the price of grain. And a lot of the grain here goes to the most vulnerable countries under food security. Russia's foreign ministry has said this is a chance to help ensure global food security, not in words but in deeds, first and foremost to help countries most in need. Officials from Russia, Ukraine and Turkey and the UN made up the JCC, the Joint Coordination Centre in Istanbul, which implements the Black Sea export deal. They authorise and inspect the ships going through the Black Sea, then out through the Bosphorus. But legends, that's it from me today. I really hope you're having a great time looking after yourself. If you'd like to support me, links down below to do that, but never ever feel obliged, but it is greatly appreciated and helps me out a lot. So have a great day and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.